and welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, for the full match preview for the penultimate game of 2024. It is Barça against Leganes in La Liga, and coming up today, we've got all of the words from Hansi Flick, who spoke in detail about Ronald Araujo's return, about Frenkie de Jong, about potential rotation in this game. We're going to be talking a lot about the lineup, but he also spoke today about La Liga referees and the standard of officiating in this league. And Flick was not messing around. Playtime is over right now. He made really big statements today, and quite frankly, I think he's had quite about enough. We're going to be talking all about those brilliant words. Let's do this. But if we do indeed begin, guys, by taking a look at the La Liga table right now, Barca do indeed stand at the very top, but only 2 points now ahead of Real Madrid. And don't forget that Real Madrid also have a game in hand. They'll be playing Rayo Vallecano later on today. And should they actually win that match, it would mean that for the first time in a while, Barca would actually be second going into our game on Sunday here against Leganes. And also notice there that Atletico Madrid, they are climbing. They are really improving their form right now. They're only 3 points back from us. And right now, Julian Alvarez is starting to fire. Antoine Griezmann, he's as consistent as ever. So even Atletico Madrid, they're nowhere near out of the race. And we are certainly being challenged here at the top of the league. And of course, guys, the reason why things have got quite a bit tighter at the top right now is because of our recent league form. Although we won in Dortmund in the week, and that was a fantastic win, in La Liga of late, we have really been struggling. You're looking at the past games, of course, the really disappointing drop points against Betis in the final moments of the game. We beat Mallorca, but that home defeat against Las Palmas, absolutely unbelievable. We drew against Celta, and we lost against Real Sociedad. Now, you will notice there, we've had lots of away games in that period. It's not been easy, not easy games at all to come up against, and now we have back-to-back home games to end the year, an opportunity here against Leganes, who are 17th in the league, but do not forget, Las Palmas were down there too. They were near the relegation zone too. We can't take anyone lightly, and that was where Flick started today in his press conference. Because he said, I have told the players that it's up to us in this game. We have to play with 100% focus, because every team that we face, they will try to find a weakness in our side, and they will fight. But he said again, it's up to us. I want the team to respect our opponent, and we must play our match tomorrow. So Flick ultimately saying there, look, we know that coming into this game, we're big favourites against Leganes, but at the end of the day, it's down to us to perform, to deliver on those expectations. You know, we can't win this game. We can't actually go and do what's expected unless we stand up and perform. And real emphasis there as well on the 100% focus. We cannot drop our guard, and we cannot lose concentration there. And Flick was asked in his press conference here, can we expect any rotation in this game? You've got Leganes now, but you've also got that big game against Atletico Madrid coming. What are your thoughts on that? And he said in typical Flick fashion, Leganes is tomorrow, and for that reason, we don't think right now about Atletico Madrid. He said, as a coach, you have to decide whether to play the same team and keep the same rhythm, but he said, we also have high quality on the bench. It's important to have fresh legs, and we will decide whether we see that now, and it could be. So Flick actually admitting there that, okay, it's good to have the same lineup, it's good to keep the same rhythm there, but we will at some point need those fresh legs from the bench. And I think he sort of hinted there that we could see some rotation, that we could see a few changes maybe in this game. Because he was then asked about Rafinha. Of course, he's been one of those players on the very verge, I think, of being rested over the past few games. And he's also been coming off quite frequently, of course. He was taken off against Borussia Dortmund more as a precaution than an actual injury. But of course, we want to be acting before anything bad happens. But Flick said today, it's actually Rafinha's birthday. Very happy birthday to him. He said he looks fresh and with lots of positive energy, but I will speak with him tomorrow, and then we will see on Rafinha. So I would say right now on Rafinha, it's kind of 50-50 on whether he starts this game. I think Flick will be in the back of his mind thinking, we do need at some point to give him a rest from the start. He will need to start from the bench at some stage, but Flick also knows how integral he is in this team. We will come on to the lineup shortly, but then we did have some very interesting questions on Frenkie de Jong. First of all there, Flick was asked actually about Frenkie Frenkie's positioning here. When he has come on recently and against Dortmund again, we're seeing him in a more advanced position in the field. And Flick was asked there, are you trying maybe to protect Frenkie de Jong there by deploying him in that slightly higher position? But it was interesting what Flick said there, because he said, I don't think about the individual. He said, I always think about the team here. I'm not thinking about what one player needs, what one player here can actually benefit from. I'm always thinking about the team. He said, in some matches, we have decisions to make based on the options that we have. And he said, it's not about protecting him. All that we want is for our players to play at their highest level there. So he's almost saying, okay, I'm basically reacting to what the team needs. You know, if we needed a certain profile higher up the field, if that was the best option that we had to come on and come from the bench, that is basically what I went with. So it's not something specific there to do with Frenkie de Jong being moved into that area. But he was asked again then, straight after, about Frenkie, do you have a specific plan for him? You know, is there a plan in place to get him back to his best, and what are your thoughts on that right now? And Flick said again, the important thing for injured players is to reach that previous level. And he said, we want to help them to reach that, or maybe even more than their previous best. He said, it's our job here to support them. But he said, it's not only with Frenkie de Jong, it's also the case there with Gavi, and now indeed with Ronald Araujo. So again, not going too much into detail, not focusing specifically on de Jong. It's about the team, it's about getting the best out of everyone. And he wouldn't really be moved there on those two successive questions about Frenkie de Jong. But he did then move on to the injured players returning to this team. He said, it's true, we're getting injured players back. Ansu Fati trained with the group today, so did Andreas Christensen, and that is great. Now, he said Ronald is able to play, it's a big step for him, and he's looking great, and it really shows that the physical trainers and the medical staff are doing a fantastic job, guys. And of course, we don't want to speak too soon. I'm not actually going to say this in full right now, but based on what we're seeing this season, based on here the players that we're getting back and that we are looking in good shape physically, it's nice to see. That's all I'll say. It is nice to see Barca right now in this position with the work that has been done. Everybody deserves credit, and all we'll say is, long may it continue, and we will leave it there. But it is good, isn't it? It is good signs that we are seeing. But on Araujo, he said the plan is that he will play his first minutes since returning in this game. He said, right now, I can't say for how long. We will see, maybe depending on the game. But he also said, we'll have to see what the starting lineup is. And maybe he's in. But if not, then he will come on. So Flick actually not even ruling out here that Araujo could make the starting lineup after all of those months out injured. Could he start on his return here against Leganes? That is going to be really, really interesting to see. But then we do move on to the very big and important topic of Flick's thoughts on the La Liga referees, because he was asked there about his ban, about his suspension after the red card that he received against Betis, which means now he'll miss 2 games. Into the final 2 games of the year, Flick will not be on the touchline. And genuinely, for what? You know, what did he do there that warranted a 2-game touchline ban? I mean, come on, that is absolutely ridiculous. And of course, Flick was asked about that suspension, his thoughts there on that red card, and the answers, they were absolute gold. Because when he was actually asked about it, first of all, he just laughed. You know, he laughed immediately at the question about his red card, and then he said, wait a minute, and he took a sip of water. He was almost like, okay, let me just compose myself, and let's think here about exactly what I want to reply to this. He said, okay, look, I think that my reaction, it wasn't huge against Betis. Flick doesn't think there that he did anything, you know, well over the top. He said, maybe I have to work on my behaviour, my emotions. But he did say at the start of the season, I told my players, I don't want to see them complaining about the referees on the field. I only want to focus on what we are doing, because we cannot lose energy. We can't really spend our energy on things that we can't control, that we cannot change there. So Flick ultimately saying, look, I told my players I didn't want any complaining, that I don't want to sort of linger on these decisions and talk about them too much. So he then went on and said, so now, in this situation, I also have to accept my red card. He said, I am in a different league now. I'm here, I've got a red card, so I have to accept it. And that's the second time there where Flick has really made a point of saying, okay, I'm in a new league. You know, this is La Liga. And I think, again, it's really starting to dawn on Flick the kind of league he's in, when it comes to officiating there, when it comes to refereeing decisions, I think he's really starting to understand, and it's probably not making him feel good, what La Liga is all about. Because then he went on to say, all that I ask, though, is that the referees and the VAR and the officials, that they make the same decisions in every match, on every bench, and not only with Barca. And what a quote that is. What a message there to send out that, okay, we accept it. A red card, fine. You want to send us off? You want to penalise us there for things? You want to make decisions? It's all fine. As long as we see consistency. Which, spoiler alert, we won't. It doesn't exist here. It's as simple as that. Flick has already understood here what happens to Barca is not the same as what happens to so many other clubs, and one in particular, because I have seen, for example, Carlo Ancelotti do exactly the same as what Flick did against Betis, and by the way, even worse, stepping outside the area, gesticulating, all of these different things. What has he ever got? What ban has ever come their way? Absolutely nothing. So that is where here the frustration comes from with Flick. But he then went on to say too, I tell the players the same thing. We've got to accept it, and we've got to play better. Almost as though we've got to rise above it here. We've got to play so good that it doesn't matter. But he said, look, the players are doing fantastic. They don't complain. I'm really proud of them. And Flick actually said their behaviour is excellent, and it's different from the years before, and this is what we want to see there. So he's told the players, don't complain, don't talk about refereeing decisions, don't blame them, don't use them as an excuse, and he says there the behaviour from the team is different and improved from previous years there. Very, very interesting words from Hansi Flick. And I think in that moment there, all of the journalists gathered inside of the press room, they all sat up, they thought, wow, okay, Flick is in the mood here to talk. What can we ask him here? What can we ask him to elaborate on in that answer? A journalist saw an opportunity and he said, okay, based on that answer there, have you not seen the same decisions for everybody? Could you maybe talk a little bit more about that? But again, Flick had what he wanted to say, and he said it, and he would not go further. He said, I'm not going to go any further into this about referees. He said, I really don't like doing this. I know that it's interesting for you, but no chance that I'm going to talk more. I said what I wanted to say, and you can interpret it how you see fit there. So I think it's important to note here that Flick, he's not complaining about referees here. He's not making excuses for teams' form. You know, he's not blaming them in any way. But I think in today's press conference, there was frustration. He spoke a lot of truth, and honestly, it had to be said. But at the same time there, once he'd said that, once he'd said his piece, once he got it off his chest, that was it there. We move on now. It's about the game, it's about the performance, and it's about the team playing better. And that is exactly there what Flick wanted to demonstrate in today's press conference. Because, okay, turning our attention now then to the potential starting lineup in this game, and how much rotation should we expect there? Given that we have this game here against Leganes, then we have nearly a full week of rest before the game against Atletico Madrid. So it's all going to depend here on how the players have recovered after that really tough, really demanding Dortmund game. So maybe we could see one or two changes in my opinion. And the big question is Araujo actually going to start? Because I didn't expect him to really be considered for that starting lineup. But after Hansi Flick's words, you know, maybe he could be in there, I actually think now Araujo could start, and maybe he could replace Pau Cubarsí, of course, who had not an easy night in the Borussia Dortmund game, and I think he's somebody who would really benefit from rest. He's hardly got any rest at all. Same there for Inigo. So maybe Araujo could actually get a starting berth in this game. Casado and Pedri, I expect to line up together in midfield, although you could understand one of those being rotated in some way. Yamal, Olmo, are they going to be okay to start? Lewandowski, you'd expect him to lead the line. And the big question then will be, will it be Rafinha on the left-hand side? Now, ideally, you want him there. You want to start the game strongly. You want him to be leading it. Of course, he feels really good, like Flick says right now. He wants to play. But could we see maybe Fermin again deployed in that kind of wider area? Pablo Torre is another option. And don't forget as well, of course, Ferran Torres is pushing. Now, in my opinion, personally, I like him coming off the bench, and I especially like him there in more central areas, making those runs as the centre forward. So I don't really want to see him deployed out there on the wing from the start. Maybe that wouldn't quite see the same impacts that we've seen in recent weeks. But guys, what would you do in terms of the lineup there? How much rotation would you like to see? Would you accept in this game? And do you believe that Araujo could and should start? Because if we look now at the predictions for this game, and I think the match against Dortmund has really helped restore some confidence here, but the most important thing now is delivering again, putting a real string of results together in La Liga here. And you guys believing that Barca are going to win in this game by a 3 or 4 goal margin, and that would be absolutely special. And again, guys, I don't know why I'm doing this recently, but I'm going to go big again, and I'm actually going to say in this game that Barca, for the first time in a while, will keep a clean sheet. That would be immense, and I think we're going to score 5. I am going to say here, Barca 5, Leganes 0, and it's going to be a special Sunday. I truly believe that here with a very strong and exciting Barcelona performance. So please do let me know, guys, all of your predictions down below in terms of the lineup and in terms of the scoreline. What are you expecting? And I will see you all on Sunday after the game for the full reaction. Thank you indeed here, guys, for joining me and indeed yesterday on the podcast. I really appreciate your support, and I will see all of you very, very soon. But until next time, as always, Vejska, El Barça.